Program note on this episode, due to a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak, when it comes to finding information on the internet regarding Larry, compared to many of our other guests, we brought in a quote unquote producer. You won't hear her or see her, but Catherine Kavanaugh is working hard behind the scenes to make sure we don't miss any important details on this episode. So welcome to the podcast, Kat. Welcome back into the Midtown Madness podcast. We have, I say it every time, but this is truly an exciting guest we have for you today. Billiken and St. Louis basketball legend Larry Hughes joined the podcast. We're going to look back on your basketball career and what's next. You're the longest tenured Billiken to play in the NBA. You're a legend, man. Thanks for joining us.
Oh man, no problem. No problem. I just wanted to tap into, just our local vibe, talking about obviously our local sports, our local team with the Bills or whatnot, but just get a chance for people to ask questions and talk to me, man. I'm here, I'm around. So I'm glad you guys have me on.
Yeah, we love to have you around, and man, it's good to see. It was so good to see you around women's basketball games with Lauren being on the team. You were born in St. Louis. Where did you grow up? It's not really pointed out the way others have it pointed out, like TJ, it's always pointed out that he was in East St. Louis where he grew up, or Dwayne Polk was always Vashon. You knew where that was, but with you went to CBC. So what part of St. Louis did you grow up in?
So I'm from downtown. I'm from 20th and Cass. Car Square Village is actually where my family is from. So when I was younger, I moved around every year, right? First time I was at a school longer than 1 year was when I made it to high school. So I've lived all around the area, south, north side. I'm in Chesterfield now, but I've been all around St. Louis. And like I said before, just me being, in my younger days, just traveling around to, different schools. So I got a lot of all the different areas, instilled in me.
Do you have a favorite part of the city that you were partial to from growing up?
Well, downtown, downtown 20th and Cass is where I spent a few years in my childhood. And that really, honed a lot of things that I do now. I mean, that's where I first started playing schoolyard basketball, first got out into the neighborhood to play pickup football and court. So 20th and Cass is like my roots.
In terms of organized sports, was it basketball all along, or was there anything else that you kind of pursued for a while?
No, it was just basketball. Everything else I played rec, outside schoolyard. I've never had on a football uniform, a football helmet, baseball, uniform. It's just always been basketball when you talk about organized sports. But obviously, when you got a bunch of friends, in the neighborhood, you play whatever's clever. Right.
When did it get to a level where you were, where it really became a passion, where you're like, this is something I want to pursue long term?
Well, I started playing, inside and organized basketball in 6th grade. And I've, took a liking to the sport, immediately just from, being able to run and jump and, have free movement. So I took a liking to the game, the organized game, early on. So 12, 13 years old. I mean, I didn't think I was really good, until later on, but I definitely had fun with it at, 12, 13 years old.
It's interesting you mentioned that you started in 6th grade, because I know, okay, I'm terrible at basketball, but we started in 3rd grade. I didn't know if, you had started a little bit later than what was available, or were you right on the money as far as that time, in history, as far as starting basketball?
Yeah, it was really the time. It was really the time as far as to having the opportunity to get out and be in those organized situations of, having a set time to meet with practice time and, obviously having, coaches and people there to run, the operation. So for me, it was really, I started playing ball, early on, like schoolyard basketball. So I was aware of the game, and I had moves and things like that. But just, playing in the schoolyard and then playing, inside the gym, it's a different game. But I've always been kind of in tune with, the athletic part and enjoying basketball.
So what is it that brought you to CBC? Did you know Justin before then, or did you guys come together at CBC?
No, I met Justin doing AAU. So
Okay.
started at Cardinal Ritter. He started his high school year at Cardinal Ritter. So he went to Cardinal Ritter as a freshman year and came over to CB his sophomore year. Obviously, I was already there, but he played his summer season, his 15U basketball season with the Eagles that year. And we began to build a relationship and, have a bunch of, sleepovers and make sure we got to where we were going. And, we just really connected from day one.
Going in, it sounds like, you moved high school or moved schools pretty regularly. What was there a bit of a culture shock going into a school with uniforms and kind of that all boys and a more of a structured environment?
Oh, high school for sure. High school for sure. CB was a military school, years before I got there. So they still had those same sort of principles and those same things in place, even though the uniforms were gone, the military uniforms were gone. We still had to wear khakis and a collared shirt, and that was completely, something new for me. But it was an experience. Like you said, it was a culture shock. Like I was, lived in a bunch of different areas in St. Louis, but nothing like the environment that CBC brought to the table. So it was new, it was something different. First got there, I didn't think I was going to make it, man, to be honest with you. I didn't think that I was able to take on the discipline. I didn't think I was able to, be in a school with all boys. But that's what sticking with it. Just sticking with the process and trusting the people that are around you to get me where I am today. And CBC played a huge role, in my development as a young man.
You mentioned the culture shock. Was there a part to the school that really spoke to you or that you latched onto that you found surprisingly easy to adjust to?
I think it was just really being in a school with all boys, and obviously, people from all different walks of life, different parts of town. There's a system where you get to CBC how you get to CBC. There's no bus route. There's no yellow bus coming to pick, everybody up in the neighborhood to go to this, to this high school. So it was guys, from South County, from the Hill, from, St. Charles, from North City, North County. So really just putting all those guys in those hallways, man, I was able to learn from people. I'm a listener before I'm a talker. So I kind of adjusted to just being in that environment, but it was different for me. I'm not going to lie to you.
So you go from a freshman, not sure if you're going to last there very long, to a senior who brings in a state championship. What was the development of that team like under Coach McCormick?
Well, we were ready. We were ready-made. We felt our junior year, we gave it away. We felt we should have, back-to-back state titles. I think we got a little big-headed. We got a little outside of ourselves. And you can talk to every player on that team and they'll admit the same thing. We weren't necessarily focused on the end goal. We got a lot of the accolades. We got a lot of the talk about, this team being really good. And we lost track of what it was going to take. And obviously stepping back and being an adult and thinking back on our high school years, I can identify that, is that we just lost track of what we were trying to do. But our senior year, we were locked in because there was no way that we were going to end our high school season without winning our last game. And that was the motivation, is whenever we go back to high school, whenever we go back to talking about, this team or that team, what we can all say on that team as seniors is we won our last high school basketball game, and nobody can take that away from us.
Yeah, that's great. At the same time, you're playing for this St. Louis Eagles team that goes on to win an AAU national championship. And it actually had quite a bit of SLU flavor on the team between you and Justin and Bonyak and Redden. And then you also had guys like Brian Grauer and Johnny Parker on that team. Were you playing with the St. Louis Eagles all along, from like 14U up, or did that team take a while to come together?
No, that team was actually so we started as another team. So we started as a youth team.
Hmm.
So we were the St. Louis Pistons, and we were playing seventh grade and eighth grade, and that's how my relationship began with CBC. Aaron Bartoni and the Bartonis was a CBC family,
Yeah.
and Mr. Bartoni was a guy that salute to him, was a guy that made sure that I was always at practice. I always had a meal. I always had somewhere to go. So that's how I was introduced to CBC in those guys. But my St. Louis Pistons team, as we begin to get older, we start to figure out what it was going to take to move into that AAU space. We turned into the St. Louis Eagles. So our entire St. Louis Pistons team then became the St. Louis Eagles. That was Walter Moore from Parkway Central,
Mm-hmm.
Matt Bonyak, DeSmet, Adam Losey, DeSmet, Aaron Bartoni, CB. So we were all St. Louis Pistons before we were the St. Louis Eagles.
Okay. Yeah, I actually did not realize that was kind of the origin story there. So what was actually, I got to back up. It's nice to hear you mention the Bartoni family. They're actually, I went to the same grade school as them. They're really nice people. I was a few years behind Aaron though. Um, so you guys are playing for a national championship with that Eagles team. What's the structure like then now? Like now you've got a very clear tournament for all of the major shoe companies. You got the EYBL and the Adidas, three stripes now, and Under Armour Association. What was the format like back then? Was it much different?
Yeah, it was just really AAU. So nowadays, AAU kind of gets grouped into all of the circuit stuff and all of the showcase events where it's not necessarily, AAU. It's like, toilet paper and toilet tissues. Like it's you use them, but they're not just the same. I mean, so AAU was the major, tournament operator when we were coming up. So everything you had to do was through AAU. You were always trying to qualify for the national AAU tournament. So you would have different tournaments around the country or in the area that you would play in. And then there was a qualifier, like and it was called the Ozark region. So anytime that you were going to AAU playing in the national tournament, you wanted to be first or second in the Ozark region, which is obviously the region that we play in. So that's how, putting teams together and making sure that the kids that are on teams are actually from the same state and from the same area, which is completely different now when you have, kids from touching states, which is different than anything AAU is doing.
That year, you made the McDonald's All-American game, which by itself is an incredible thing to put on your resume. But you look at the rosters for that team on the East. It was Brendan Haywood, Ron Artest, aka Meta World Peace, Lamar Odom, Elton Brand, Shane Battier. West, you had T-Mac, who unable to attend, Jason and Jerron Collins, and Baron Davis. I mean, what is it like, emotionally to realize that you're among the best of the best in the country for your age?
Well, it's still about the competition. All right, it's still about the competition, even though that you're playing on all-star teams, and you're now on the same team as these guys. That what I did was I printed out a board, and I had all of these guys, and their name was on this board. And what we would do is we would see, how far we could move up. So even though we were playing in the McDonald's All-American game, it was still like you still had to prove yourself. You still had to show that you were one of the top guys in the crowd, because a lot of those guys went pro, and a lot of those guys had long careers, in the NBA. So what you needed to do if you were going to be one of those guys that stand out is you need to, to make sure that it was always about the competition. And that's really what I did, during that game.
Yeah, you definitely competed. Like you said, 16 of 24 players played in the NBA. And while the East won 94-81, it was, that's low scoring for the All-American game. You had 17-9. That's impressive. So, Was that where the big, top 10 in the NBA draft started to, or, your kind of draft hype started, or was it before that?
Well, I think it was probably around that time or a little bit after. I was never a guy that thought, I could go from high school to the NBA. Obviously, they had, scouts and things of that nature out at those sort of events at the McDonald's All-American game. So once I got on the St. Louis U's campus, then I think it was, okay, he showed well, in the McDonald's All-American game. Let's see what he does once he gets to campus and they start practice. And then once we started practice and, the word got out of, okay, this kid can now go and play against, juniors and seniors in college. So now it means a little bit more than just playing against guys that are his class, the guys that are his age. So I think that that's kind of in that little window is when that conversation started on the outside space.
I want to back up just for 1 second though, because I think I got ahead of myself. Going back to your recruitment, much has been talked about and understood about how you ended up at SLU on a macro level, but who was recruiting you other than St. Louis University? Who was big on your heels trying to get you to go out of state?
Well, my top five, I ended up with Kansas, Illinois, Michigan, Syracuse, and St. Louis University. So those were my schools that I was choosing from.
I'm curious because basically when you talk to anybody who, anybody on the outside that talks about your recruitment and ending up at St. Louis University playing for Coach Spoonhour, they said basically, they'll say Larry could call up Spoon and just say, hey, I'm coming. And Spoon's like, okay. Can you run us through the lead up to committing to St. Louis University? I mean, we know kind of why, but Pete, can you help me out? I'm blanking on how to frame that.
No, I think you got it.
Okay.
I'm just curious what's the final stretch like? I mean, you've got those 5 schools. So what's it like between you and Spoon and the staff when you were ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, and just with the schools that I left, I mean, you still had, the coaches were coming in, they would do home visits. Mm-hmm. So, part of the process to allow, those guys to come in and see, where you lived, how you lived. And that was a part of the process and how they received and how they were able to then begin to communicate with you, because we're not all from the same place. We're not all from the best places. College coaches, they come and go to any place where there's players. So sometimes they don't know what sort of situations that they're running into. So you can tell a lot if a coach is engaged in that process of wanting to come to your home to experience, kind of what you experienced to build a better relationship. So I did that in Kansas. Roy Williams came in. We did the whole home visit. Those guys were high on my list. Syracuse, I actually took a visit to Syracuse, and I actually took a visit to Michigan on the official side. The unofficial visits that I took was to Kansas and to Illinois. So I think that's a part of the process as well, is that you get a chance to go official to those places that are, a distance away where it's tough to get to, which we did for Syracuse and Michigan. And then for our unofficial, we were able to drive and hop on the highway to go and visit those schools. You get the same sort of experience. You get the same sort of information for unofficial, as you do as with the official visits. But that's what I chose to do, during my recruitment process. I did take a visit to St. Louis University official, me and Justin, just because we wanted to, just experience it, man. We were always taught that, if you get 5 visits and you don't get a chance to travel much, you better make sure you take your 5 visits. So we took a visit to St. Louis University. We got put up in a hotel. We're going to places that we already know, but it was all a part of the process. And with Spoon, it was a relationship. And that's what really was a determining factor. As I say all that, the determining factor was the relationship that I was able to build with the coach of the program that I was heading into. And being a local guy, I was able to go and go and play pickup at St. Louis University, walk past Spoon a few times. Coach Derek Thomas, who was actually at CBC my first couple of years, he was at CBC for 2 years. During my 4 years, he actually ended up on St. Louis University's staff. So that was another connection with St. Louis University. And from there, it was just about building those relationships.
You took when you went on your visit to St. Louis, I got to ask you, because Jeff Harris is one of my all-time favorite Billikens, and one of the favorite people I've interviewed. Just hilarious, funny, foul mouth, and forthcoming. That's the best thing I can tell you about him. He is unbelievable. Do you have any good stories about hanging out with him on your recruiting visit?
Now, what Jeff was the old head, right? Jeff was the old head. He's been seeing us come down, playing pickup for at least 2 years, if not 3 years. So he knows exactly who we are, what we do. We're having conversations like, we're teammates already. Jeff is a really good dude, like you probably already know. And not to get off subject, but when I first went to the league playing in Philadelphia, we were on a lockout, and Jeff had actually went and took a job in the New Jersey, New York area. And he drove down to pick me up, and we hung out for a few hours. So that's what's the relationships, that I got in college that actually benefited, after I was out of St. Louis University. But Jeff, he knew. I mean, on that visit, we all knew, what we knew. It was nothing that he could say that would surprise us, nothing he could say to persuade us. We knew who he was. He knew who we were. So it was all good.
So the other programs you're looking at are mostly, powerhouse kind of programs at the time. Was there any hesitation about where SLU was as a program, coming off a losing season and everything?
Not really. Not really. We were thinking in terms of our summer team. We just went out and beat a lot of, good guys in our class. To win the national championship. We knew that, those guys we were going to St. Louis University together, and we were going to put a team together. And if you can remember, just back in those times, a lot of the top guys, like, they stayed home. They stayed and they went to schools that were close to them. And that was really a trend, during my time. It kind of just happened that way. But we go back and we look at, my senior class, just a lot of us just decided to stay close to home. I don't know if it was because of relationships that we had built, but that was really what it was. And to put St. Louis University back on the map, I mean, that was something that we wanted to do as well.
You mentioned that attitude that, we're coming in and we've got really good players. We're gonna put it back on the map ourselves. There's a lot to be talked about, or that's talked about online among message board morons such as myself and Peter, that, you talk about, oh, this program's terrible. Why would they want to go there? But then you have a guys with the attitude like you had, where I'm going to come make this program. Is that something you think that you would look for in a coach, is a guy who will buy into what the future could be, not how can I join what's already in place?
Yeah, and it's different now, right? It's different now. The landscape is set up to promote those sort of situations. Obviously, you want to always play with like-minded people. You always want to play with high caliber people. And with social media, I think the world just allows all those things to come together, way more than they were able to, in my day. But we had those things. We had those talks. I mean, even when we traveled around in those all-star circuits, you would talk to guys that, I talked to BD, we talked Baron Davis about, teaming up, and playing together. We loved each other's games, so we wanted to play together. I mean, he was all the way out in California and I'm in St. Louis. So it just happened that he's going to go to UCLA and I'm going to go to St. Louis University. So I think that those people, we were having those kind of discussions, but it was kind of tough to act on it because there wasn't a real sort of blueprint for it. Somebody had to step out and take that chance, right? Somebody had to step outside of their comfort zone and go to another place that they felt that would have their best interests at heart. And I always knew that St. Louis University would have my best interests at heart.
Larry, the other reason that a lot of people talk about you at SLU is being close to family. And I know you had a pretty unique situation in your family. And I know it's been a long time, and still our condolences about your brother. I know it's been 15 years, but It's a tragic situation. And you also have a single mom who you're really close to and want to be around. Um, I mean, how much of a pull was that to be close to them, while you're in college?
I think it was a big pull. I think with the resources that are out there, wherever I decided to go to college, I would have tried to get them as close to me as possible. But again, we're talking about, we have really good hospitals here in town.
Mhm.
So my brother needed exactly what the city had to offer. So that's what, my whole thing was, to make sure that we could do everything possible to make sure that he's in a position to have the best providers possible, but then also give them that joy of them seeing me play basketball. And I knew that was a lot of times that got my little brother through certain situations, just to see, me play, see me having that kind of fun. So I didn't want to take that away, right? I wanted to make sure that was, was live and direct, and it definitely paid its benefits, man. It definitely paid its benefits with, me being local, me being able to, take that drive, 10, 15 minutes up the road. We were living in Florissant at the time, Ferguson at the time. So it was good for me to have that connection, with the family as I'm going through this, this life-changing process to try to reach that ultimate goal.
So this season, you guys come in and pretty much turn the program around pretty quickly. You go from an 11 win team to doubling that up to a 22 win team. Make the tournament. What was it like to go through that process? With Coach Spoon and a bunch of guys you played high school ball with.
Man, I love Spoon. I love Jay, DT. Coach Lack. All those guys set the foundation for me to reach the goals that I set for myself. But it's crazy because I didn't practice. And I had some injuries with my wrist and things that happened. I think I was taking some creatine and that messed up something in my body wasn't acting right because of some supplements that I was taking. But I didn't practice that much, my freshman year, because I needed to be ready to play in the games. And Spoon, he made sure that I was in a good space, and he made sure that he knew that he had my back. And if anyone would speak about, me not practicing, he would always, find a way to express and to explain, how much I give when I'm able to get out there and play. So it was never a problem with any of my teammates because they knew, once I was able to actually go, I would give them everything I had. And then playing with, guys that I played summer ball with, you can't beat that. To go into college and have those bragging rights, because we had Larry Simmons, who was on the team, from Texas, and we had guys that were from around different parts of the country, and that was something we could brag on, right? We could brag on, this group of guys from St. Louis went out and won a national championship, and then we took all of those guys, most of those guys, and put them at St. Louis University to represent even more. So that was a fun experience. Still talk to those guys to this day, still see those guys. Obviously being back in St. Louis, I still bump into those guys too.
First things first, what do you think your teammate Allen Iverson would have to say about you not practicing?
Oh, I spent time with him, so I might have taught him some things about not practicing.
He learned it from the best, man. I was wondering if you could kind of go deeper into that non-practicing thing, because that's something, obviously I would not to date you and myself, but I was, 9 years old, I think, while you were at SLU. How did that come along? When did it start? And really just what was the decision with the trainers?
Yeah, man, it just kind of happened, and it was a wrist issue. It was one wrist, and then it was kind of the other wrist. And I don't know if it was kind of like tendonitis or whatever it was. It was just it would only get better if I just would rest. So if you watch a number of our, my college games, you go back, you'll see I have wraps on. Either I have tape on, or I had some guys from Chicago actually made me some number 20, wrist wraps that I wore, my freshman year. But if you go back, you'll always see that I had my wrist taped up. And, it was just a matter of, when do you want the action? You want the action at practice or you want the action in the game? And Spoon was a guy that he wanted the action when it was game time. So he allowed me to, take care of myself. I was going to class. I was showing up on time. I was being a good teammate. I was doing all those things. I just was not able to, practice, much really. And I think that might have set me back a little bit. I could have been a little bit better if I'd have practiced, a little bit more in college.
You mentioned Spoon and kind of his flavor. Any good Spoon stories off the court, traveling? Any just funny things about him? We love behind the scenes funny stuff.
Well, he's a country guy, man. He's a country guy, so he would always talk about the tipping of the cows or some story. I mean, there's a story that he always told. It was a story about a guy named Doyle, who he used to coach, and then like one of the ugliest guys on the team, and so he had a whole back and forth. But at the end of the story, there was always a moral to the story of like just keep pushing. Like you never know what's behind the neck door. But Spoon's got he had a bunch of the stories
like
that you
parables.
Yeah, just about this cow or this or this wild animal, and how it relates to real people, but a really good solid dude, man, who short little white dude, man, who I'm saying, I'm like I said, I'm from downtown St. Louis, and that connection that we had was was great and amazing.
We know he loves his booze. Did you ever get out and tip a few back with him?
No, I didn't. We didn't get a chance to do that. And really with Spoon, man, I was seeing Spoon, up until the time when he passed, because he was living in Vegas and I was spending time out in Vegas working out. So I would see Spoon in the airport, taking that trip back from St. Louis to Vegas once he was done coaching, a lot. And we would, always share, conversation, share a little smile, share a wink. And yeah, man, that guy holds a special place in my heart for sure.
So aside from the guys you came in with, some of the veteran players that you had on that team, you had Luck DeFeld and Virgil Cobbin and Jamal Walker and Corey Frazier. Those are all guys who are, a lot of them are still around at St. Louis actually and everything. What was your relationship like with them then? And is that something that's carried on to today?
Yeah, the relationship was good. The relationship was good. You got to remember, I'm 19, so I'm really, I don't like to call myself quiet. I like to say I choose my words wisely, but I would feel like, kick back and chill. I didn't have this crazy ego. I didn't think it was all about me. I didn't come in with the mentality that, those guys weren't good enough, so I just kind of ingratiated myself within the team. I mean, I hung out a little bit. Jamal Walker was John Redden's roommate. John was on our team. We were good. We're all good friends now. So we just kind of, started to bridge those gaps. John went to St. Louis University a year before we did. So we had that connection. So all of those guys that were there before us, Luck DeFeld and, B Cobbin, just seeing B Cobbin a couple years ago, man, it's just like we, we're back in Marquette Towers, having a good time. So yeah, man, those guys were great. All of our teammates. I hope that there's not a bad thing that they can say about, the young guys that came in that year, especially myself. I feel like we all had a really good, connection, and I went in there, did what I had to do, and didn't put those guys off while I was doing it.
I want to jump into one of the big games of your time at SLU, and it was a game at Southern Illinois University Carbondale, an 85-76 win. This game / trip down there was legendary in my late uncle's eyes. I mean, he would tell me about this anytime we'd talk about you, but the story of the game has kind of faded a little bit. Can you run us through this game? You had 35 points in this game, and it involves an unreal second half comeback.
Yeah, man, that's where that's where you get your name. Like that's where you make your mark. That's when you really let people know who you are, and what you're here to do. And for me, it was like, that was a stamp. That was because it was Spoon going back down. He was getting heckled a little bit. So I had to take up for him. Like they expected and wanted Spoon to lose that game because he was now in the quote unquote big city, at a bigger program. So, I had to represent for Spoon, and he knows it. He knows it, that was definitely for him because of all the heckling and all the talk that was going on because, he had left the area.
Yeah.
But that was him though.
Sorry.
That was the, I'm here to get the job done sort of message that kind of, help propel, the rest of the season.
So just to kind of run down the stats of that game, like I said, 35 points on 13 of 24 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3 and 7 of 12 from the line, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. You guys were down 32-26 at half, and the team scored 59 in the second half. What does Spoon say in that locker room at halftime to get that result out of you and the team?
That Spoon was my guy, man. So it was about all of the noise that he was hearing, like, because, we weren't playing well. Like it was like you should be here instead of there. And, for me, like we really had I had a really good connection with Spoon. So we were on the same page. We would have a conversation, in the locker rooms. He would have a conversation with me in my locker of, this is what needs to happen. This is what I'm looking for you to do. So it was, only thing that I can really say about that game is that I had Spoon's back. And if you run into anybody that was at that game from the other side, they can tell you how much they were heckling, and trying to get, Spoon red. When Spoon gets the red face, all hell can break loose. But, that's what that was really about, is really representing and supporting Spoon. And that's what we did.
You said that you like to think you choose your words carefully. Were you more of the silent assassin in that second half, or are you more of a Reggie Miller, kind of giving it back to the folks down in Carbondale?
No, it was probably all work. It was all work. Right? It was all work. Maybe an antic here and there, but for the most part, it's just put your head down, go to work, and you feel like you'll be standing at the end, and that's really the mentality.
So that season, you guys, you're playing at what's now, I guess, the Enterprise Center downtown. A few names ago then, and you're one of the top 10 teams in the country in terms of attendance, averaging like 17,000 fans a game. But then you've got this one really unique game on the schedule at the Dome against Illinois. What's the difference in atmosphere there when you're going and you're playing in this NFL stadium that's got a curtain down the middle to divide it into 40,000 fan capacity? Did you see that as kind of like, okay, this is going to be what it's like to play in an NCAA tournament?
Well, I mean, it was shock. I mean, it was shocking to see, just the amount of space that's in, a venue like that. And I recognize it to this day, right? When college teams are playing in those big arenas, or even NBAs have, all-star games. They've had it at the Dallas Stadium. And I hear commentators talk about, the bad shooting. Like that is real. Like when you have a different backdrop that's nothing like you've seen or you've been shooting at, on a constant, basis of just knowing, okay, this is the backdrop. If I'm this distance, I know that this is, sort of the, what it looks like. But when you're playing in a dome and you have all of that space, you have a basket that's just kind of sitting in space, and you have a rim that's there, and then you have the backboard that's clear. So it's really, different. And it's going to take a few times to play in a venue like that to really understand, kind of the dynamics of that sort of spacing.
If you're the World Basketball Commissioner, do you outlaw games played in arenas bigger than the hockey size? Do you say now, is that like, are you like, no, we don't need bad shooting and whatnot. Let's keep it small.
No, because it's all about the dollars. It's all about the dollars. So the more space you have, the more people you can pack in there, right? So no, I think it's a good experience, man. We think about it from the high school level, it's tough. In the college space, it's tough. But when you get into the NBA space and going through those sort of things, it's like this is a challenge. Like this is the one of the best players in the world to challenge himself to play in a venue like that. And it's not easy. No, it's not easy, but no, I wouldn't stop it. I mean, I wouldn't stop it. You get a chance for some amazing events. If you think about the NCAA tournament and playing, the national championship game in a venue like that. I mean, you can't beat that sort of environment.
You talked about experience, and this schedule certainly was set up as, to give you heaps of experience. I mean, just a gauntlet of a schedule. One of those being a hell of a college basketball experience, playing at Pauley Pavilion against UCLA on December 20th. It ended up being a 73-67 loss, but you're talking about playing against a team coached by Steve Lavin. NBA players on that team: J.R. Henderson, Toby Bailey, Baron Davis, Earl Watson, Jelani McCoy. I mean, how much fun was it to be able to visit one of the basketball meccas at Pauley Pavilion, and B, play against such tough competition?
Hey, you called it. You called it, man. College is about, obviously, the competition and playing games, but it's also about the experiences. And that was my first time traveling out to to play basketball in California. Not only play basketball in California, but to go to Pauley Pavilion. So, just that experience of going to play one time. And then after that, I played in an all-star game. It was Magic Johnson all-star game. I got a chance to go back and play in that same venue. And later on, I got a chance to go and watch the game in that same venue. And it's just, you get a chance to really understand history. And when you go to a place for the first time and it's a historic place, you don't really grasp everything that it has to offer. So we played a game. So me getting a chance to go back later on, man, just taking pictures and I actually met, Coach Wooden at our McDonald's AllAmerican games, and just getting a chance to experience all of that. I mean, that's one of the venues that's really special. And using, our college basketball experience to get that experience was definitely something that I remember for sure.
So after this game and that experience, you guys have another unique experience, I guess, and you head down to San Juan, Puerto Rico for what looks like an unbelievably hard tournament. You've got number 19 Syracuse, number 12 Arkansas, and a really good Iowa State team all in a row. So what's it like taking on competition like that in a place that's so much different than where you're from?
Well, you got to hoop. You got to hoop, and that was part of the reason for going to St. Louis University. Hey, we going out to California to play UCLA. We're going to San Juan. We have, these teams that'll be there. So you get a chance to get experience. You get a chance to get exposure. So for me, it's like wherever we're at, you got basketball, you got refs, you got two teams. That's hoop. And being in a different environment like that, I mean, I could almost close my eyes right now and picture myself, being there. And you can't, it's hard to put that into words, like, what basketball and what sort of experiences those things have brought to me. But when we go down, memory lane and we have these kind of conversations, it's good for me to start to remember all these places and things that I've done. But man, San Juan and having a chance to play against, top teams that are in big conferences, quote unquote, bigger than Conference USA at that time, to put your name on the board to move you up even higher was a benefit to me. And one of the reasons why I went to St. Louis University.
I'm kind of labeled as like the Joker on this podcast. I always find I always like the dumb stuff. And one of the things we talked about with another guest was that when they went to one of these island tournaments, they got in the ocean and were not aware of rip currents. and nearly got sucked out to sea. Any fish out of water stories, guys who had never been, outside the continental United States, just kind of just things going wrong or going weird down there?
No, I wouldn't say weird, but I will say we all tried to gamble. So were I think we were 17. We went out and played in this tournament in Las Vegas, and the hotel people knew that it was basketball stuff going on. They knew it would be a bunch of younger kids running around the casino. So we would try to stand next to a slot machine and slide a coin in and push the button and kind of turn our back to see if we would hit, but try to make it so people, the staff, didn't know that we were young people playing gambling. So fast forward to San Juan, and we're in Puerto Rico, and the hotels, it's really laid back. So we got a couple dollars off with gambling just because it wasn't really, they weren't really paying attention. So that was like my first experience with gambling. I tried to do it at 17 and was able to, or at 16 was able to get it a little bit of gambling at 17, but we didn't tell anybody.
That's great. So you guys have a Conference USA was legit in those days. I mean, that was a really tough conference. One of the teams that I think won the conference that year, it was Cincinnati, who was ranked in kind of the teens all season long, and notoriously tough team. You've got guys like Kenyon Martin, Ruben Patterson, and coached by Bob Huggins. What was that rivalry like in your season at SLU?
That was the test. That was a test. I mean, one of my games that I can remember that I'd say is, I mean, it may not have been one of my best games stat-wise. I don't even think we won the game. But I think we played Cincinnati on ESPN here, at home in St. Louis. And those guys were unreal. Those guys were different. They had, guys that went to JUCO. So they rocked completely different than what we were thinking, we were getting into. So they were barking at us, all of these different chants, so they meant business, but that was the standard, right? I mean, if you played well against Cincinnati, especially during that time, you had a chance because they were going to dog you, they were going to try to take your heart, they were going to try to intimidate you. So really, if you could play against Cincinnati during that time, you were good to go, across the country, because that was one of the toughest programs to play against, whether it be Conference USA, the ACC, the Big East. I mean, those guys were real.
One of my favorite notes about Spoonhour was his relationship with Bob Huggins, and just kind of the dichotomy between Bob Huggins and Charlie Spoonhour as personalities in public versus their great friendship in private. Did you have any run-ins with Huggins? I know Jeff Harris talked about Huggins yelling it back and forth with Fortson, mother effing them each other, just jawing each other. Do you have any run-ins with Huggy Bear?
Oh no, I didn't. But he would make sure. I mean, I heard my name come out of his mouth many times, as far as to make sure you stop him. But no, we didn't have any interaction. Because I think too is, again, the relationship with Hug and Spoon was deep, and I would see those guys, having a drink, afterwards or whatnot. So I don't think he really went in too much with with anybody on our team. He would definitely get on his guys, but his guys were wild at the time. I mean, that's how he coached. I mean, he kind of brought that to West Virginia too. But man, Cincinnati was, I mean, they give you nightmares if you didn't perform well.
Is that a team you could have survived on, or is that just no thanks? That kind of program.
Yeah, I could have survived anywhere. I mean, just from the fact that I'm going to compete, play hard, and the ability is going to, kind of put me in a place where, I have a place. But at the same time, coaching style matters. Your teammates matter. Confidence that they give you, all of that stuff matters. The sacrifices that they make for you, all of that stuff matters. And I got that a lot. at St. Louis University. Coaching staff sacrificing the things that maybe they wanted to run or do because of some of the talents that I had. Coach, some of my teammates, them sacrificing some of their game. So it takes a lot, to go out and win games, but definitely sacrifice is a one of those things that are on the top.
Something that's only happened 3 times in SLU history. You did it once at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee against Marquette. You had 40 against them. Do you remember that game?
I do. I do.
What can you tell us about that experience? Is it just like an out of body thing where you're just can't miss?
Yeah, I think it was, really finding a rhythm and playing in an NBA arena was a huge draw and was a huge energy, energy boost. Like saying that you get a chance to, compete on an NBA floor, and you kind of put yourself in the NBA game, even though this is a college game. Like it's an NBA arena, so it's an NBA feel. And I feel like that had a little bit to do with it because I feel like, and I've seen clips that I know that I was locked in, and I know that I was really in like attack mode, the entire time.
Going into that conference tournament, you guys beat Tulane 71-53, and then you draw Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. Obviously a team that you feel like you want to beat, and you guys, weren't able to overcome them. What was the disappointment level, and were you guys still confident in your chances at an at-large tournament bid?
I think so. I think fatigue, if I can remember, back, I think fatigue was really, kicking in at that time. We had to go so hard. We had to play so hard to win games that sometimes and some nights, especially later on in the season, it was hard to sustain that. So I think we always had confidence. We felt like we did enough to make it to the tournament. We were all shooting for the tournament. That was a goal of ours to start the season. That was a goal of ours to, during the recruitment process. So we always felt pretty confident that we would get that nod to get into the tournament. But again, you can't be sure. But as a team, I know for a fact that we weren't necessarily nervous or had any sort of anxiety over if we would get the chance to compete or not. I think we all kind of felt that, we did enough to get that chance.
And then once you hear your name called, what's that? Were you guys all together for that, watching that together? Or is it even broadcast the same way then? I don't remember.
Yeah, we were live. We were together.
Okay.
We were do, the whole little, selection, Sunday little deal. I think we kind of actually got word that we were probably coming up. If it was this spot or that spot, I can, vaguely remember kind of guys like tapping each other, like, here we go. And, before you knew it, we were there, excited about, what our matchup was and just getting a chance to really celebrate as a team. Like I said, we were a team, and that's what got us to that level of making the tournament.
You guys, head into the NCAA tournament, you draw UMass first round, and you get a game at the Georgia Dome, which, funny enough, we talked a lot about that game at TWA Dome. How much do you think you were prepared to go into that game at the Georgia Dome, given that you had already had experience in an NFL stadium?
It was, I felt I was prepared just because there were just so many people there, and this is the NCAA tournament. This is something that we have been talking about, have seen, we all, saw the, one shining moment. Like that's what we were shooting for. That's what we wanted to be a part of. So whether you're a 12 seed, 7 seed, 5 seed, or number 1 seed, that's what that's the goal, is to shoot for the one shining moment. And to be in Atlanta, in the Georgia Dome, again, one of those, bigger venues, it was special, man. It was special.
So you score 18 in this one, and you guys hold that their leading scorer to only 8 points. Do you remember how you scouted them? Laurie Katner was the guy's name.
No, we knew that they were guard heavy, so we would put a lot of pressure on them. And I will say that that was one of the toughest games that I've ever played. The next game really proved that to me. I mean, I was done. I had like 0 left in the tank against Kentucky, but UMass was a big win for us because of the conference play, right? I mean, once you talk about matching up the different conferences in Conference USA, I mean, we had good talent and good teams, but there was still some leagues that kind of had that upper hand, so to speak.
Does Matt Banyak get the MVP of that game? Obviously you had probably the biggest role in that game, but I mean, he very much outperformed his season averages and was kind of an animal in that game.
Well, that's stepping up. That's stepping up, man. I've been playing with Matt for what, 5 years at that point. So we all knew, I knew what he brought to the table. I knew that, that he was ready to step up. Just given the opportunity, that's what a team does, right? That's what a team does is step up, and knowing that he is, again, a kid from St. Louis that wears St. Louis on his chest. I'm not the only one. So he has things that he wants to represent for as well. So I think that was motivating for him too.
Was he going up against Tyrone Weeks? Because Weeks came down with 16 boards in that game. Who had the unenviable task of marking Tyrone?
Well, I think when your best player, ends up with 8 points, there's probably a lot of missed shots. Yeah. So you have to see how many of those 16 were offensive, how many of them were defensive, because I don't think either one of us shot the ball really well. So there were a lot of rebounds to go around.
So you mentioned having nothing left in the tank for Kentucky, and I know this was a tough one. Kentucky obviously has no shortage of weapons. You're looking at a Tubby Smith coach team with Jeff Shepard, Nazar Muhammad, Scott Padgett, Wayne Turner, Jamal McGlure, Michael Bradley, and so they're just coming at you in waves. You only played 23 minutes in this one. Was that just a result of hey, I don't think we've got this one, and I'm cashed?
Yeah, that was Spoon recognizing that it's not your day. Probably, I mean, I felt it. I didn't, realize, about the minutes, but I felt it. You just don't have the lift. I mean, you're in that roller coaster mode where there's so many highs, there's so many lows, and just to make it out of the first round, that's sometimes some of the teams, championship. So I knew as soon as the game started, I felt pretty good, but I knew as soon as the game started that, those little guys that are up under the floor, they had a hold of my ankles. I couldn't run, I couldn't move. I was a step slow. So I knew that, I didn't have much left.
You may not have had a decent game, but Chris Heinrich, man, another guy who stepped up, 16 points in 24 minutes, 50% shooting. He pulled down 10 rebounds. What do you remember about his performance against a really good Kentucky team?
Well, I remember Heine, man. Heine, we used to call him Heine. I remember when he first got here, and how much of a struggle it was for him to make our lines when we would run our sprints. He would, almost to the point of, needing medical attention. And you talk about it, you mentioned, 16 points in 24 minutes. That's what that brings me back to. All of those sprints and all of that stuff that we were running and doing and trying to push him through when he was, dripping, sweaty, wet, smacking the back, smacking the back stop because he couldn't make the line. That's what what memories come to me when you talk about him stepping up, in that second round game, is all that work that he put into it. But yeah, Chris Heinrich, man, he's the redhead bomber.
I think we've heard funny stories about Chris over the years, and he may be the most forgotten Billiken with the longest pro career. Do you attribute that work ethic to how long he lasted? I mean, outside of the fact that he has a German passport, but yeah, I mean, what do you think the secret to his longevity has been?
We taught Chris how to work. Like we taught him how to work. Like we taught him you're not gonna die, right? Like first you might pass out, and then we got to figure out how to get you back. But you're not just gonna run and just fall over and die. That's just not gonna happen. So we would coach him and talk him through that because we knew that we needed him. We needed him, in the case when Matt Bonyak wasn't playing great, or we needed a bigger body. Like we knew that we would need Chris, and that's part of like what we did with him is like motivating him to get in better shape. Motivating him to not show that he was defeated. So that speaks into a long career. Once you learn all of that stuff early, then you understand what adversity is, and the pro game is nothing but adversity. I mean, it's one of the toughest things in the world to do. Is play, a sport at a professional level. So you need all of that stuff that, he was built up with to succeed, and definitely proud of that guy for, his time spent, playing professional.
Yeah, and to have a big game in this one, this is why I remind people that is the Kentucky team that won a national championship, a couple of weeks later. So they were everything that you guys ran into. To wrap it up on your SLU career, I mean, you finish averaging 20.9 points per game, which is a freshman record at SLU, 670 points, which is the all-class season record. You've got 5 games of 30 plus points, first team all conference, AP honorable mention All-American, National Freshman of the Year. I know you're exhausted at this time, but did you have any time to kind of think about what you guys had accomplished and what you personally had accomplished there?
Right after the season?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Pro Talk had started, 6 weeks into the season. So now I'm just trying to figure out, did I do enough to, make those things become a reality?
Mm-hmm.
And that was it was that is to, I felt that I was healthy. I felt that I gave everything I could give. And I felt that it was a really good, a good season and a good situation. Even once we finished the season, I wasn't sure that I would leave and go pro, but I felt like, did I do enough? If I wanted to decide to leave school, did I do enough where I would be able to actually make it? And that's when you get drafted in the league. That's different than making it. Like I wanted to actually make it. So, those were some of the things that I thought about after the season. And, I felt like I had a pretty good chance.
When exactly did you kind of come to the conclusion that you were going to go pro, and how much did kind of your family situation play into that as a kind of a percentage wise?
Well, family was huge. The opportunity to change the lives of myself, my mom, my brother, and then those that are around us was definitely something that I was thinking about. I had a really small circle with my mom kind of heading to, being the information, hub as far as if she doesn't know about it, it's not happening. If she didn't okay it, it's probably not happening. So I had one go-to person that I knew I was getting all the correct information from, and that was my mom. So our circle was really tight. We brought in a couple of advisors to understand, to have those real business conversations of is this really real? And let's not talk about the cute stuff and the fun stuff, but let's really talk about, the details and the things that are, that are underlining that can happen in a draft of you actually going lower later, or, things not happening and how you want them to happen. So I got a lot of information during that short time after the season was over, had a couple agents come into town to meet to get even more information. And then that's what solidified my decision to say, I'm going to go ahead and leave school and make this NBA jump.
When Justin joined the team the year after. Was there kind of not regret, but was it kind of a, a bummer that you didn't get to share the court with him at St. Louis University?
Oh, for sure. For sure. We planned that out, since probably, our junior year, even though we didn't, decide until our senior year. We were trying to figure out a way that we would go to school, together. And St. Louis University obviously made the most sense with everything involved. But yeah, that was one of the toughest things. That's probably one of the things that still kind of stick me in the side here to this day, is that we didn't get a chance to play, on a college floor together. But at the same time, John Redden, Matt Bonyak, Justin Tatum, we were all still the St. Louis Eagles, so we did get a chance to put some of that product on the court together. But that's definitely one of the one of those things that I wish was a little bit different.
Can you give us kind of a window, and feel free to decline, but just a window into that conversation, that personal conversation between you and Justin, where you kind of were like, "Hey, man, got to go pro."
Yeah, that's easy, man, because we have conversations all the time. And he was probably one of the ones that tell me, man, if they give you the shot, you got to go, right? We were supposed to be roommates. He had the issue going on with the NCAA, so we weren't, we weren't full-time roommates. But we had conversation. He hung out, at the apartment as much as he could with the rules that were going on. So he was fully aware, and that he's family. So we had that conversation early on. And when I decided to declare, we were actually in Atlanta during what they call was a Freaknik. Back in the day, they had Freaknik in Atlanta. You made too young for it. So
I remember the song "Welcome to Atlanta." I believe it was referenced in that song.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm more of the remix fan though. With was Chingy on that one?
Yeah. Mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Diddy.
Yeah.
I really decided that, what, I've gotten all this information. I'm now down in this environment. So, you know what? This is going to be it. I'm going to make sure that I let everybody at home know, but you guys know that I'm not coming back to school. So we had conversation. He was cool with it. He knew what time it was. And man, even though he didn't make it to the NBA, he experienced with me a lot of stuff that goes on in the NBA. And now it's crazy as he's going through the same stuff with his son now. So he's actually been in the NBA without, putting the strain on his body.
Best of both worlds. So by that time, when you're down there, have you already done like pre-draft workouts, camps, anything like that? Signed your agent, or was that all still to come?
No, that was still all
okay.
Pre-declaring. I wouldn't get a chance to declare until I actually got back to St. Louis. And what's crazy about that is I declared, and my whole intention was to finish out my school year, finish out my classes, and then obviously during that time began to prepare for the draft. And I went to class like the next day after I declared. And one of the students I can remember, it was a female, and she was like, what are you doing here? I was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. And that was the last class I was in at St. Louis University. But I had every intention on, finishing up my time at the university, finishing up my classes. But once she threw that at me, I was like, you know what? I could probably be doing some things that's going to help me, at the next level. And that was the last time I was in class.
As we went through during the research I did on the 98 draft, I mean, my goodness, what a strong draft. Dirk Nowitzki and Paul Pierce, you were drafted ahead of both of them. But Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, Rashard Lewis, Mike Bibby, Jason Williams, 25 guys who had a decade plus careers. Did you realize at the time what a tough group that was, or was it not until later that, it became clear?
No, I didn't really, because again, those guys were upperclassmen, and, we didn't have all of the stuff that we have today. So, I saw North Carolina. So I knew, Antoine and Vince. I mean, Vince Duncan, I knew that's what he brought to the table. I saw Mike Bibby, with Arizona because they were in a national championship game. But no, I didn't really know like any of these guys or what they really brought to the table because, we didn't have a lot of these social media tools that we have today. We just could read, lines about people and you didn't really get that visual.
I want to ask you about the draft fashion, because it's become like a Twitter thing and a social media thing to post pictures from back in the day with the massive suits, lapels you could start a world record pin collection on. I mean, do you still have this suit? Can we put it in like Shafitz? Like, can we put it in the Billiken Hall of Fame if you still have it? Because that would be amazing.
I believe I still have a draft suit. And if I don't have it hanging up in my closet now, I believe my mom has it. But yeah, it's one of those deals that those are things that you keepsake. And with all of those numbers, man, we don't have the number 20 in the rafters yet. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if I'd have went one more extra year, that would have been a no-brainer. But before we put that suit up, we got to get that jersey up there first.
Can we get some social media? Can we get a picture of you in the suit? Can we get you to try it on again? One time for the boys.
It depends. It depends. It depends. I know for a fact I can still fit it.
I think you could fit your whole family in it.
When Junior gets drafted, he's got to wear that suit.
Yeah, they don't wear the full leg anymore, man. You know what I'm saying? They don't wear the full leg and the drop down to right at the butt length. They don't do that anymore. Everything is waist high and to the ankles. They don't dress like that anymore.
And sometimes they just go with short suits. They go with the shorts.
Well, you got to create the awe factor or the wow factor of oh, I know he didn't factor. I mean, any sort of factor that you can create, I'm saying, especially with how these kids are moving with social media today, that's exactly what they're going for.
So leading up to that night, what's the feedback you're getting? Are you working out a lot for individual teams, and do you kind of have are you and your agent kind of getting an idea of what your range might be?
No, yeah, I would only work out for a few teams that I wouldn't go past 8. So I was in that 6 to 8 range. So I worked out for Dallas, I worked out for Sacramento, and I worked out for Golden State. I think Golden State was 5. So I did work out for Golden State, Sacramento, Philadelphia, and Dallas. And that's where I was pretty much slated to go. My first workout was with the Sixers. Everything went well. The communication was good. I'd known, for a little while that, Larry Brown liked, the bigger guards that can play some point guard. And being a young guy, it made sense for what Billy was doing at the time. So it all made sense. And then you talk about number 6 and pick number, pick number 6 and 10, because Dirk was actually drafted 6 and 9. So Dirk was actually drafted 9, but he was actually drafted for Dallas. So essentially he was going 6, but they wanted to keep the money right. So they drafted Tractor Trailer to Dallas as opposed to Milwaukee. So what they did was just a quick switch with Tractor Trailer going to Milwaukee and Dirk, who went 9, going to Dallas.
So, so what's the experience in there that night like? Like, who's at your table, and how are you feeling that night?
Draft night, had the family around. Mom, brother, wife with the expecting child, my agent, my cousin Rich Gray, who was the leader of the St. Louis Eagles. I think John King was there, my attorney. So a really small circle. Right, but just people that came out. My draft was in Vancouver, so we made that trip from St. Louis, Missouri, all the way to Vancouver, and got a chance to experience that together. But a guy by the name of Donnie Cross, who went to CBC, who was a dentist in town. I said it was a good table. It was a good group. And obviously everything worked out exactly how it was supposed to work out. I mean, we had guys like Rashard Lewis, who was left in, the green room when he was projected to go, high in the first round. So with me, I went 8, the 8th pick. We did the little media, and we were out of there.
I'm curious, do they serve dinner? I that's one thing that just popped into my head. Maybe I'm just hungry. I don't know.
No, not guys. You couldn't eat, man. You couldn't eat if you can hardly breathe. There's no way the guys are eating or taking any sort of meals at that time.
You don't want to be taking a bite when they call your name.
Right.
Well, you obviously get drafted by Philadelphia. I mean, Allen Iverson's an iconic NBA player. I think with Reggie Miller, I think he's one of my all-time favorite NBA players. I mean, I'm a little shorter, on the shorter end of the height spectrum, so Allen fit right in there with my view. What was it like meeting him for the first time?
It was special. Because we were in a lockout season, and actually my mom and my brother actually met Allen before I did. They were just happened to be at a restaurant called Fridays on City Line Avenue, which was a place that Allen hung out at. And somehow, I think my mom actually, bumped into somebody or said something that, she was my mom. And the way he treated them from day one, just because they were family to me, just kind of kickstarted our relationship. I came to Philly after my mom and my brother did. My brother was starting to school, and my mom actually had a job, so they came to Philadelphia before I did. I went to Philadelphia before I did. So my relationship with actually Allen started after my mom and my brother. But from day one, I mean, we were in the gyms working out together. We were traveling together. We were hanging out together. We were eating dinner together. So that experience was special because it wasn't about, things that were going on the court. I mean, that stuff kind of happened a little bit later. He was a really good friend, helping me out, as a young guy coming in to get, acclimated to Philadelphia and what everything that they had to offer.
So NBA teams then did not have the resources that they do now for rookies and young players. And you're coming out after just 1 year of college and kind of being thrown into the fire alongside a player like Iverson. That just seems like a high degree of difficulty. And I know Larry Brown is, has a reputation for being a little tough on rookies too. Did you still feel like you were prepared, or was it just kind of overwhelming? And did you wish you kind of had a little more, franchise support at the time?
No, I think I was kind of prepared. I think it was a funny season, obviously, to start out for everyone. It was, the first time in a while that we had any sort of work stoppage. Everyone understood that there was a bunch of money, getting ready to be dumped into the system. So, just kind of, understanding that space of, are we really going to have a season? And, I made the jump with financial responsibilities once I decided to make that jump. So being on lockout and not being paid at that time, it was good for me because I had a shoe deal. But all of those things, led up to me just really becoming a professional and knowing that, all of this stuff can end tomorrow and it could just be a completely different situation. So it really opened my eyes up to how the business of basketball goes, how that matches up with, getting yourself prepared to go out and play a grown man's game. So it was a good introduction for me, is because I almost got the business side first, and then the basketball piece, flowed into that. I was 18 years old, so there was tons of things that I needed to learn, from a basketball standpoint, from just getting stronger standpoint. So I was never going to be prepared, that first year, especially with the lockout, and everything happening so fast. But Allen did a good job of, he took on all the pressure. If we lost the game, it was because of him. Obviously, if we won a game, it was because of him also. But he took on everything that was negative or everything that was, could be a problem for the team. He took it on. He took all that on.
So in the media, his reputation has not always been that of a great teammate, but you're making it sound a lot different than that. Like he was a guy who knew how to step up and be a leader and take accountability.
Well, we knew who he was. We knew that if we had an NBA sort of meeting that was mandatory for all the players to be at, he's probably not going to be there. But if we had a team meeting that all the players wanted to have a conversation, or all the players wanted to get together and just, have some camaraderie, or just kick it, he was there. So we knew who he was. We knew that, that he would show up for his teammates. We knew that he was in it for his teammates. Like we knew that. So that really wasn't a problem for us.
So I want to back up. You mentioned your shoe deal, and it was with And One, I believe. How does that come about? And kind of talk to me about dealing with that company, because I don't know if they're still around. I know last time I saw them, they were in Walmart. But talk to me about kind of working with a company that was like new to the game.
They were heavy, starting out. They were just starting out around that time. Was introduced a little bit just through my college days. I would, get a few boxes that had And One on the side of them. But this was a time when you had, schoolyard was huge. Playing on the playground was huge.
The mixtape tour.
Yeah, so you had all of the T-shirts with all of the slogans on it, and the strong men with tearing down the basket. So that was a sort of gritty sort of presence that And One had. It was more of the street versus the commercial. And that was the vibe of what drew me to them. And then the company was actually in Philadelphia. They were started in Philadelphia. So with me having, being projected to end up in Philadelphia, that for me made it a sweeter shoe deal, because they were, it's their home city. So they were able to get their product on a guy that was the 8th pick, playing in the city that their brand, was originated at. So that helped me out a lot as far as brand recognition, but it also helped me a lot with, just the different finances that were lacking because we were on a lockout and we couldn't get paid, right? The only guys that were getting paid was from those guys that had endorsements, or the guys that had some sort of proration of their contract that would allow them to get paid from their last year's salary. So yeah, but And One's they're back. They're back. I think they have Toronto guy Fred VanVleet is with them now. I think they have a few other NBA guys on tap.
You mentioned getting paid, and paid you did. It was, I believe the contract was 6-year, $2.8 million. Did you were you able to get involved with any of the mixtape tour at all? Like get down there to the filming, anything like that? And what was that experience like?
Oh yeah, I did it all. Venice Beach. We had a tour that stopped in Atlanta. So it was really our job. I mean, as an And One athlete, to promote everything that And One was doing. Even though I think that they got a little off kilter with doing so much of the mixtape stuff that it took away from the product that they were putting out on the court, with the shoes and things of that nature, that I felt hurt them. But yeah, man, we had a bunch of fun. I mean, a lot of the guys, Hot Sauce and Headache and Escalade, a lot of those guys, man, are good dudes and just capitalized on the situation. AO, who's another And One mixtape guy out of Philadelphia. These are all guys that kind of capitalized on that opportunity that was aside from Reebok and aside from Nike.
So you play about 2/3 of your second season in Philadelphia, and then you head out to Golden State. What was that transition like?
For me and Larry Brown, we were just butting heads. I mean, you spoke about it early. I mean, young guys, not necessarily LB's cup of tea, especially a young guy that he tried to put at the point because he has a smaller guy, in Allen Iverson, who he has to put at the shooting guard. So with me, he had all of these rules and all of these principles and all of these things that, were LB-isms that, that he was living by. So for me, we just kind of clashed and we were butting heads. But I learned a huge amount of information from LB and things that I still use today. So the things that he was saying that were going in this ear, he thought they were going out the other, but they were really sticking. So he's one of the great mentors that I have today. But just to answer that question of going out, being traded out to Golden State, that allowed me a chance to figure out if I could last in this league, if I could really, play basketball in the NBA. I was given the basketball and told, go make things happen, go make plays, go put the ball in the hole. The team wasn't really good, so it was an experiment project, and I'm thankful for that because it allowed me to understand and to keep my confidence that I could play, in the NBA. Because when you're a rookie, man, you go up and down. Like, can I really do this? Do I really have a place? And that Golden State, experience really allowed me to lock in to understand I did have a place.
So by the time you get there, PJ Carlesimo had been fired, I think. And then, so you're playing for an interim coach who basically gives you a green light. Cause I think this is the period of your career where you're averaging like 22.5 points a game. So after that first season with the interim coach, now you've got in your second year, Dave Cowens coming in as kind of the new head coach. What was his message to you? Did you have as much of a leash with him?
It was all over the place at that point. I was a product of my environment at that point. I had Gary St. Jean, obviously transitioned from PJ. PJ was gone it was maybe a month. It probably was shorter than that.
Right.
The deal was probably in the works when PJ was still the coach. I'm sure of that. But by the time I made it there, PJ was not the coach anymore. Gary St. Jean was the coach. And then from Gary St. Jean, we had Dave Cowens. We had Brian Winters as well. So I had 3 coaches in 3 years on a team that had a revolving door of players. So it was a tough situation. I didn't really know what the expectation was. I didn't really know what the role was. Obviously, being in constant losing seasons, you're putting yourself in position to get high draft picks. So we're constantly bringing guys in, again, with no direction. So, but again, these are all lessons that I was able just to learn from and understand that this is how the league works. But yes, not having a clear understanding and clear direction when you have 3 coaches in 3 years, it's tough to figure out what you need to get done to make sure that the coach is has their plan in place that you can actually win games with that team.
A lot of what you're talking about with Golden State and the revolving door of coaches and players, it speaks a little bit to me thinking about TJ Hargrove. And I'm curious if you've ever had any conversations with TJ about kind of his experience, I think, at East St. Louis High School and how he can learn from that and put that into his, maturity and play going forward.
Yeah, I think TJ has done a good job. He's played, for a number of high school coaches, and I know he's played, his AAU ball. He played for a few different programs. But I think right now, with him being at St. Louis University for what is this, his 3rd year, being 3 consistent years under the same sort of tutelage, under the same sort of mindset, thought process, has really helped his game, and it's helped him mature. It's helped him understand what he needs to get done. And I've had conversations with TJ, his mom, his dad, that the kid has a chance. And we talk about having a chance. You want to put yourself in position to one day be paid to play basketball, whether you feel like that's the NBA or overseas or whatever league it is. You want to give yourself a chance. And guys, I'm sorry, I got about 10 minutes and I got to stop.
No problem.
Yeah, that's fine. Just to touch on Washington really quickly, you're there at a really interesting time. And I know you co-host a podcast right now, with our guy, Matt Moderno. And it seems like a place that you remember fondly, but you were also there at a really tumultuous period. We've all watched The Last Dance, and they barely touch on MJ's time in Washington, but you get there his last season. What's it like being there at that time?
It was a great time. It was a great time. MJ was actually, in the front office and signed me to my contract to play for Washington. And then he was actually my teammate. So that's a special time to have, a front office guy with MJ see your talent, see how you can help, their organization, their program, and come in and sign you, and then be a guy that plays, right alongside of MJ. So for me, I really, watched MJ growing up. I mean, that's how I figured out that I wanted to play basketball. Want to be like Mike. Those are all the things that, I saw and heard growing up. But I really watched him, how he, interacted with, the media, how he walked into our locker room and how people would gravitate towards him, how he carried himself in the training room. Like, I watched all of those things that we never get a real chance to see, because, one day I know that basketball is coming to an end, and I'm going to be in that position to, to carry myself in a way that like MJ carries himself, to communicate with, when the media comes into the locker room. I mean, just to have all the eyeballs on him and understand what his message is, and to articulate, exactly what he's trying to say. Like, those are the things that I watched from Michael Jordan. Aside from, even at 40 years old, he can still play the game of basketball. I mean, there can be levels to it. We can talk about levels to it, but I mean, you can put a 40-year-old guy out there on the court who can produce multiple 20-point games. That's a special guy.
So you're one of the only guys who can say they've played with both MJ and LeBron, obviously at very different points of their careers. How would you compare and contrast playing with each of them? I know, they were obviously much different points of their careers, much different ages, different circumstances, but what would you say is the comparison and the contrast between those two?
I would say that they both have a will to win, and that can be thrown out there for a bunch of different people, but it's how you go about winning and how you set yourself up for that process. And MJ did it with obviously his battles with Detroit and understanding what he had to do from a physical standpoint, just from an overall, being I won't say a better teammate, because just being a teammate, and how that affects, how you win and lose games. And I think LeBron just does it differently. He communicates with his teammates different. He has a different sort of process that he goes through to make you understand how dominant he is. He may not tell you about it. He may show you, versus MJ is going to show you and he's going to tell you about it. So they have a lot of, similarities, but I think that they're different in how they go about, getting their job done. And both, obviously, as we know, special talents, 1A, 1B. I know the question is coming, but MJ is for me, he is the ultimate GOAT, if that's the term that we're using. I mean, he is, on the top of the mountain. If I had to pick, who's the best.
We were talking about the old heads, and I want to talk about the new hotness in the league and your godson, Jason Tatum, number 1 in our hearts, number 0 on the program. What's your relationship like with him now, and kind of how much does he bounce stuff off of you as far as picking your brain about experience in the league?
Well, I think he has a really good circle, and we support, Lil J to the fullest, to make sure that he has all the information, all of the outlets, anything that he needs. His dad and obviously I are really, good friends. We're brothers. So, in essence, that makes him, my nephew, my godson. It makes me a person that's here for him, no matter if his name's in the lights or, if he's the guy next door. But for me, it's like I talk to Lil J through Justin. So I watch Jay play almost every night. I'm watching body movements. I'm watching the game. I'm watching if he's kind of lagging on something. I'm watching if he's kind of dragging something. And I'll always mention that to Justin, and Tat as I call him, just so he can mention that to Lil J, because I know at some point in time, he'll be able to get that information into the conversation. So it's not always hey, this guy said this or this guy said that, because I'm sure he's getting it from everybody wants to give him a tip about his game or how he should play or what he should do, whether they're current players, former players, whatever the case is. But I know for a fact that he listens to his father. And I know for a fact that his father has a great understanding of the game. So that's how we communicate, you know, especially being long distance, that's how we communicate.
So, you know, your own kids obviously have the basketball gene as well. Both of your daughters played at MICDS, and you know, Lauren played at SLU, which is awesome. As your son's entering his senior year at CBC, what are your ongoing conversations with him like about his future and his next steps?
For him is continue to be a good kid, you know, continue to have good character. And continue to represent himself in a light that he wants, you know, his parents to be proud of. I mean, that's really the first message. And then it's about stacking good days on top of good days. And the more you do that, the better chance you'll give yourself to be successful. He is a kid that is acknowledged, that's put it out there that he wants to play professional basketball. And he has all of those tools. And we talk about those tools of on the court, off the court. He has those tools. So now it's about just stacking those good days on top of each other and keeping the main thing. And that's your character, your basketball skills, and your family. And be proud of whatever happens and whatever comes out of that. Be proud of whatever comes out of that.
Larry, I couldn't let you leave without talking about your relationship with Nelly. You've said you've known him since the 90s, before he had his big breakout at the end of that decade. In 2008, you played Kelly Rowland's boyfriend in the video for his single Dilemma. In the video, she leaves you for him. Was that his idea, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, no, that was just part of the script.
Were you like, no, that wouldn't happen in real life?
Was he trying to tell you something?
Yeah, he probably was trying to tell me something because, I don't have a lot of, those stories were old stories and those stories are now on the internet, but our history now, our conversation now are very far in between. So I'll leave it at that, but yeah, I won't be doing any more of those videos. But Murphy Lee, the St. Lunatics, those are my guys. They're good with me.
Did you laugh when you saw Andrew Latimer show up in the was it the Hot in Here video?
Hot in Here, yeah. Was that was Latimer's.
Did you find that as funny as I did?
I did. I mean, and those of us who are from St. Louis University knew exactly what that was.
We know you got to leave, but just really quick, Larry Hughes Basketball Academy. What can you tell us about that and what you're doing there and what the mission is?
Well, I think that's my give back to the space. Just being involved with the young people. Young people give me great energy when I see them out. Trying to compete. Trying to learn. Different skills. That's where I get my joy. But the Larry Hughes Basketball Academy is about creating peak performers on and off the court. Where we are a curriculum-driven program where we're trying to give the young people the necessary fundamental skills, the foundation that they can use to further their basketball career, whether they're playing for their local, rec team or they're playing high school basketball, they have aspirations to go to college. We feel like we give them the tools and the process to have a foundation and to have the ability to play at any level that they choose to play at. And so for us, it's about how many locations, how many, more opportunities can we put within the area. We have 2 academies here in town right now, which is in Chesterfield Valley and also Gravois Bluffs, South County. So we're looking to just, like I said, just give an outlet for young people to come in, learn the basketball game, put their own little spin, little twist to it, but just really making sure that they have the fundamentals of the basketball game and also the character development that it's going to need to sustain everything that they get whether it be through basketball, whether it be through life, but just having that character to really fall back on as these young people get older.
Great. We've got a limited platform, but we're definitely going to try and spread the message as much as we can. We'll retweet and everything to get the word out.
Well, you know what? That's what it's about. And when I sent the message out, just to connect with our local podcast, I know podcasting is huge. Obviously, I'm a local guy, and anything that I can help to boost somebody's, footprint up or just help them move along, in their space of podcast. And that's what this was really about, to get our local guys, in tune and on tap. So I'm happy you guys responded to that message and we were able to jump on, and hopefully you have some tidbits that you can use and we can promote and we can get more attention to you guys' podcast.
Man, I can't tell you how grateful we are to have you on, man. I mean, you're even just your year with St. Louis University was such a big part of my childhood. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's truly an honor. And I think I can speak for Peter as well when I say that. Yeah, there's so much more. We'd love to have you back on sometime, even if you just want to come on and just chat about, one of the weeks in Billiken basketball or catch up with you at Shea Fitz. Hopefully we're going to have full houses. Larry, thank you so much. Any last words for Billiken fans?
No, I think that, with everything that's going on, obviously with the pandemic, everybody has dealt with all of the challenges. The young people I know for a fact that are on these teams that get a chance to come back and participate and not, lose a year and be, booted out to somewhere else. Let's support these guys. Let's get down to Shea Fest and let's support these guys and be a voice for them. We don't have a professional team here, a professional basketball team here in St. Louis. And I think with the environment that the arena has, the space that's, with the seats that within that space being a really, close environment, I think that we can really do some really good things as far as helping and promoting the guys that are out there playing. And then just make Shea Fest one of those centers, man, where, when you go to a city without any NBA basketball and you're a tourist or you're coming in for whatever, like you got to make it to a basketball game. And that's my hope for St. Louis University and St. Louis University basketball.
Again, thank you, Larry, and enjoy the rest of your evening, man. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Right on, man. I appreciate you.
Take it
Thanks,
easy.
Larry.